My fiancé demanded a prenup at our engagement party, keep everything separate. I smiled, perfect. Then revealed I'd already transferred our dream house to my sister. Some conversations change everything, but I never expected mine to happen in front of 150 people at what was supposed to be the happiest night of our lives. I should have known Amber was planning something when she insisted on making a speech without telling me what she wanted to say. I'd been with Amber for 2 years, building what I thought was a solid foundation for marriage. As a software architect in Denver, I made good money, around $180,000 annually, and had been careful with my investments. We just closed on a beautiful mountain property outside the city for $680,000, a dream home with panoramic views that we'd both fallen in love with. Amber had contributed $30,000 from her inheritance, and her parents had added another $45,000, while I'd handled the rest through my LLC. The engagement party was being held at the downtown Ritz-Carlton, paid for by Amber's family who wanted to celebrate in style. Her father owned several successful businesses around Denver, and they'd spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers, open bar, a string quartet, everything designed to impress their social circle. I was mingling with guests, accepting congratulations, when Amber clinked her champagne glass for attention. "Everyone, I have something important to share," she announced, her voice carrying across the ballroom. I assumed she was going to thank everyone for coming or share some sweet story about our relationship. Instead, she looked directly at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nathan and I have decided that we want to protect both of our futures by keeping our finances completely separate. We'll be signing a prenuptial agreement that ensures what's mine stays mine, and what's his stays his." The room went quiet. I felt every eye in the place turn to me, waiting for my reaction. Her parents were beaming like she just announced a promotion. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing this wasn't the typical engagement party declaration. "I believe in protecting my family's generational wealth," Amber continued, her confidence growing with each word. "And I think Nathan understands that successful people make smart financial decisions. We both want to enter this marriage knowing that neither of us has any claim on the other's assets." I stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. She'd ambushed me with this announcement, clearly expecting me to either agree publicly or look like an unreasonable partner in front of everyone we knew. The smart move would have been to smile, nod, and discuss this privately later. Instead, I felt something click into place. "You know what, Amber? You're absolutely right," I said, raising my own glass. "Financial protection is incredibly important. In fact, I've already taken steps to protect my assets." Her smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" "Well, since you feel so strongly about keeping everything separate, I transferred our mountain house to my sister Emma 3 days ago. For $1. So your $75,000 investment in what you thought was our shared property? That's now officially separate from anything I own." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched the color drain from Amber's face as the implications hit her. Her father stepped forward, his expression shifting from proud to furious in seconds. "You did what?" Amber's mother gasped. "Emma owns the house now," I continued calmly. "Completely. The transfer is already recorded with the county. So congratulations, Amber, you got exactly what you wanted. Total financial separation." The next few minutes were pure chaos. Amber's father started shouting about lawsuits while her mother tried to calm everyone down. Several guests pulled out their phones, clearly recognizing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years. Amber herself looked like she was going to be sick. "You can't do that," she whispered. "The deed was in my name," I replied. "The house was purchased through my LLC. Your contributions were investments in my business venture, not joint property ownership. I checked with my attorney before making the transfer." That's when Amber completely lost it, screaming about how I'd betrayed her trust and stolen her money. Her parents rushed to her side while guests began heading for the exits, the celebration officially over. I finished my champagne and walked out, leaving behind the woman who'd just shown me exactly who she really was. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from Amber and her family. The reality of what had happened was clearly sinking in, and panic was setting in fast. I'd used a family trust loophole that my attorney had suggested months earlier when I was setting up asset protection for my growing software business. The transfer to Emma was completely legitimate and, more importantly, completely irreversible. Amber showed up at my apartment at 8 a.m., still in yesterday's dress, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Nathan, we need to fix this right now," she demanded, pushing past me into my living room. "You can't just steal our house." "I didn't steal anything," I replied calmly, pouring myself coffee. "I protected my assets, exactly like you wanted to do with yours. The difference is, my name was the only one on the original deed." That's when she really started to understand the magnitude of her mistake. The mountain property had been purchased entirely through my LLC, Nathan Rivers Development. Her $30,000 inheritance and her parents' $45,000 contribution were documented as investments in my business venture, not purchases of joint property. I'd structured it that way on my lawyer's advice for tax purposes, but it also meant Amber had never actually owned any part of the house. "But I helped pick it out," she said desperately. "We chose it together. I put my money into it." "And I appreciate your investment in my business," I said. "Unfortunately, since you want complete financial separation, I can't allow any confusion about ownership." Her father arrived within the hour, red-faced and threatening legal action. "This is fraud," he shouted. "You manipulated my daughter into investing in property you planned to steal." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone to show him the recording I'd made of Amber's speech, "your daughter publicly declared that she wanted to protect her assets from any claims I might make. I'm simply doing the same thing." That afternoon, they consulted with 3 different law firms. Each one delivered the same devastating news. Amber's public announcement about wanting complete financial separation actually supported my legal right to protect my assets. Her demand for a prenup proved she understood the importance of keeping finances separate, making it impossible to claim she expected joint ownership of property titled solely in my name. The panic really set in when they realized the house was now worth significantly more than we'd paid. The market had heated up, and comparable properties were selling for $750,000 or more. Emma, who worked as a real estate attorney, had initially been reluctant to accept the transfer. But after I explained Amber's behavior and showed her the engagement party video that was already circulating on social media, she agreed to hold the property temporarily while things got sorted out. "Your ex-fiancée sounds like a piece of work," Emma said when we met for lunch. "Did she really think she could publicly humiliate you and then expect you to just accept it?" "Apparently," I replied. "She's been texting me nonstop, alternating between threats and promises to call off the prenup idea entirely." By the end of the week, Amber's family had burned through thousands in legal fees only to be told repeatedly that they had no case. The property transfer was legitimate, properly documented, and legally sound. More importantly, Amber's own words at the engagement party proved she understood and wanted financial separation. The irony wasn't lost on me that her attempt to protect her family's wealth had cost them $75,000 and made them look foolish in front of Denver's social elite. Word spread quickly through our circles about what had happened, and Amber found herself becoming the cautionary tale she tried to avoid. Within days, Amber launched a full-scale social media campaign to salvage her reputation. She posted long Instagram stories portraying herself as the victim of financial abuse, claiming I'd manipulated and deceived her into investing in property I planned to steal. Her posts were filled with tearful selfies and captions about toxic men who prey on trusting women. The problem was, multiple guests had recorded her engagement party speech on their phones. When these videos started surfacing, they completely undermined her victim narrative. You could clearly hear her smugly announcing her desire for complete financial separation and see her satisfied expression as she delivered what she thought was a power move. The hashtag prenup backfire started trending on TikTok, with people sharing the clips and discussing the irony of someone getting exactly what they asked for. Amber's attempts to hire legal representation became increasingly desperate and humiliating. The first firm politely declined after reviewing the case. The second firm took her retainer, then returned it 3 days later with a letter stating they couldn't represent her due to the strength of my position. The third firm actually laughed her out of their office when she showed them the engagement party video. "Ma'am," the attorney told her, according to Emma, who heard it from a colleague, "you have a video of yourself publicly declaring you want financial separation, and you're upset that your fiancé gave you exactly that? This isn't a legal case, it's a life lesson." Meanwhile, Amber's family was getting increasingly aggressive. Her father started showing up at Emma's law office, demanding she reverse the property transfer. When she refused and explained it was legally impossible, he began making threats about her career and reputation. That's when Emma decided she'd had enough. She filed a restraining order against Amber's entire family, citing harassment and attempted intimidation of a licensed attorney. The restraining order hearing became another public spectacle when Amber's father lost his temper in court, shouting about how his family was being persecuted by con artists and thieves. The judge was not impressed, especially after reviewing the engagement party videos and seeing Amber's social media posts. "Mr. Walsh," the judge said sternly, "your daughter publicly announced her desire for financial separation. The respondent simply accommodated that request. This court will not be used to relitigate poor personal decisions." The restraining order was granted, and suddenly Amber's family found themselves legally prohibited from contacting Emma or coming near her office. This added another layer of humiliation to an already embarrassing situation. The story was now making rounds in Denver's legal community, with attorneys sharing it as an example of how not to handle relationship finances. But the real damage came when local news picked up the story. The combination of a lavish engagement party gone wrong, social media drama, and legal threats made it irresistible clickbait. Denver woman's prenup demand backfires spectacularly ran on 3 different news websites, complete with photos from the engagement party and excerpts from Amber's social media meltdown. I watched all of this unfold from a distance, declining interview requests and maintaining my silence. My attorney advised me to let Amber's own actions speak for themselves, and she was doing an excellent job of that. Every desperate move she made only dug the hole deeper and provided more evidence of her true character. The final blow to her reputation came when someone leaked screenshots of her private messages to friends, where she'd bragged about securing the house first, then protecting everything with the prenup. These messages, sent weeks before the engagement party, proved that her entire approach had been calculated manipulation rather than genuine concern about financial compatibility. That's when I decided it was time to go on the offensive. I hired a private investigation firm to dig deeper into Amber's activities leading up to the engagement party. What they uncovered was even more damning than I'd expected. The investigators found a detailed 6-month timeline of Amber's manipulation strategy, documented through her text messages, emails, and social media activity. She'd been planning this exact scenario since we'd first started looking at expensive properties together. Her messages to her college sorority group chat were particularly revealing. "Step 1. Get him to buy the expensive house," she'd written. "Step 2. Secure my assets with a bulletproof prenup. He's basically my personal ATM with benefits, but I need to be smart about protecting myself when this runs its course." The messages got worse. She'd referred to me as her tech boy toy and bragged about how easy it was to manipulate someone who thinks with his heart instead of his brain. Most shocking was her timeline prediction. She'd planned to stay married for exactly 3 years, then file for divorce while claiming irreconcilable differences and walking away with maximum financial benefit. Her parents weren't innocent bystanders either. The investigation revealed that her father's financial advisor had been coaching the family on wealth extraction strategies for months. They'd researched my software company's valuation, estimated my net worth at over $2 million, and developed what they called Operation Golden Goose, a plan to access my assets while protecting their own through legal mechanisms. Email exchanges between Amber and her parents showed they'd been treating our relationship like a business acquisition from the beginning. Her mother had actually suggested specific language for the prenup that would have given Amber claim to any business growth during our marriage while protecting her inheritance and family assets. The most damaging discovery came when investigators found evidence that Amber had already consulted with 3 different divorce attorneys before our engagement. She'd been shopping for lawyers who specialized in maximizing settlements from high-net-worth divorces, specifically looking for those with experience in software industry cases. One attorney had provided her with a detailed strategy memo outlining how to position herself for maximum financial gain while minimizing her own risk exposure. The memo included advice on documenting emotional distress, establishing financial dependence, and timing the divorce filing for optimal asset distribution. When this evidence came to light during the legal discovery process, Amber's remaining credibility evaporated completely. Her own attorney, the fourth one she'd managed to hire, withdrew from the case after reviewing the materials. The poor guy realized his client hadn't just made a bad decision, she'd been running a long-term con that had spectacularly backfired. The Denver legal community was buzzing about the case. Law firms were using it in training sessions as an example of why thorough client vetting was essential. Several attorneys admitted they'd dodged a bullet by declining to represent Amber, not realizing at the time just how calculated her actions had been. But perhaps the most satisfying revelation was learning that Amber's plan had a fatal flaw from the beginning. She'd assumed I was naive about relationships and money, not realizing that my software background had made me naturally analytical about risk assessment. Her entire strategy depended on my emotional attachment overriding my logical thinking. Instead, her behavior had triggered exactly the kind of pattern recognition that made me successful in business. Every red flag she'd thought she was hiding had actually been carefully noted and documented. I'd been building my own case file without even realizing it, and when she forced the confrontation at the engagement party, I was ready with a response she never saw coming. Emma had initially been reluctant to accept the house transfer, thinking it was an impulsive decision made in anger. But after the investigation revealed the full scope of Amber's manipulation, my sister's attitude shifted completely. "You know what?" she told me over dinner one evening. "I think it's time this property served a better purpose than being part of someone's con game." That's when Emma made a decision that would twist the knife even deeper into Amber's financial wound. She put the mountain house up for auction with 3 luxury real estate firms simultaneously. The timing couldn't have been better. Denver's mountain property market had exploded, and our house sat on one of the most desirable lots in the area. The auction created a bidding war between luxury developers who saw the potential for either a high-end renovation flip or subdivision development. Within 2 weeks, the property sold for $780,000, a $100,000 profit over what I'd originally paid. Emma's next move was pure genius. She donated the entire profit to a women's financial literacy nonprofit in Denver, establishing it as the Amber Walsh Financial Education Fund. The scholarship program would help women avoid financial manipulation in relationships by teaching them to recognize red flags and protect their assets properly. The irony was perfect. Amber's name would be permanently attached to helping other women avoid the exact kind of schemes she tried to pull. When news of the donation broke, it created another wave of social media buzz. The story now had everything: betrayal, karma, and a happy ending that helped other people. Amber became a case study in how not to handle relationships and money, with her name literally funding education to prevent others from making her mistakes. But the revelation that really sent Amber over the edge came when security footage from our original property viewing surfaced during the legal proceedings. The real estate agent had recorded a walkthrough for marketing purposes, and Amber could be heard clearly making dismissive comments about letting Nathan handle all the boring financial stuff, while she focused on decorating and entertaining. In the same footage, she'd laughed about how men who work in tech never pay attention to relationship dynamics, and how easy it was to let them think they're making all the decisions. These comments, made 6 months before the engagement party, proved that my decision to transfer the house wasn't reactive or spiteful. It was a calculated response to months of manipulation that I'd been subconsciously tracking. The house transfer had actually been a test of Amber's character, one she'd failed so spectacularly that even I was surprised by the extent of her deception. The legal aftermath was swift and decisive. Every attempt Amber made to claim ownership rights failed, with her own recorded statements being used against her repeatedly. Her lawyers, the few brave enough to take her case, found themselves arguing against their clients' own words and actions. It was legal malpractice waiting to happen, which is why most firms had refused the case entirely. Meanwhile, Emma was being praised in legal circles for her creative solution to the property situation. The donation had transformed what could have been seen as family favoritism into a legitimate charitable act that served the public good. Several other attorneys reached out asking if she'd consult on similar cases involving financial manipulation in relationships. The mountain house that Amber had seen as her ticket to financial security had become the foundation for helping other women avoid her mistakes. Her $75,000 investment was now funding workshops on prenuptial agreements, asset protection, and recognizing financial abuse, all things she clearly could have benefited from learning herself. The final insult came when the nonprofit sent Amber a thank you card for her contribution to women's financial education, along with an invitation to attend their first workshop on recognizing and avoiding financial manipulation in relationships. With the house situation resolved, Amber turned her attention to salvaging something from our relationship's wreckage, specifically, trying to force me to pay for half of our wedding cancellation costs. Our $85,000 wedding had been scheduled for the following spring at an exclusive mountain resort, with deposits scattered across a dozen different vendors. The cancellation created a financial avalanche that Amber's family clearly hadn't anticipated when they encouraged her prenup stunt. Amber's logic was breathtaking in its audacity. Since I'd caused the breakup by transferring the house, she argued, I should be responsible for the financial consequences of canceling our wedding. Never mind that her public prenup demand had actually ended our engagement. In her mind, my response was the problem, not her behavior. The confrontation came to a head at our wedding planner's office, where we'd scheduled a meeting to discuss the cancellation process. I arrived to find Amber already there with both her parents, clearly planning to ambush me with their demands. Nathan needs to pay his share of the cancellation fees, her father announced before I'd even sat down. He's the one who broke the engagement. Actually, I replied, pulling out my phone to play the engagement party video. Amber broke the engagement when she announced she wanted complete financial separation. I just accommodated her request. The wedding planner, a professional woman in her 50s who'd clearly seen her share of relationship drama, watched the video with growing amazement. Oh my, she said quietly. I've never seen anything quite like this before. Amber's mother tried a different approach. Surely you can see that emotions were running high that night. Amber didn't mean what she said about keeping finances separate. She was just trying to be responsible. So responsible that she'd already consulted with divorce attorneys? I asked, producing copies of the emails my investigators had uncovered. Or responsible like planning a 3-year marriage timeline with maximum asset extraction? The room went silent. Even the wedding planner seemed stunned by the evidence of premeditation. Amber's face went through several shades of red as she realized I'd done much more than transfer a house. I'd uncovered her entire scheme. That's when she completely lost control, screaming about how I'd ruined her life and stolen her future. Security had to be called when she started throwing decorative items from the planner's desk, including a crystal vase that shattered against the wall behind my head. Her parents tried to restrain her while apologizing to the wedding planner, but the damage was done, literally and figuratively. The most expensive casualties were the imported Italian flowers, which had required a $12,000 non-refundable deposit, and the exclusive resort venue, which kept their $18,000 booking fee. Amber's designer wedding dress, custom-made in Paris, was another $8,000 loss since it couldn't be returned after alterations. The photographer, caterer, and musicians each had their own cancellation penalties, creating a cascade of financial obligations that totaled nearly $50,000 in unrecoverable costs. But the real drama came when Amber's parents tried to recoup some losses by selling her engagement ring. I'd purchased it through my software company as a business expense, technically making it company property rather than a personal gift. When they took it to the jewelry store, they discovered the ring was legally owned by Nathan Rivers Development, not Amber personally. The jeweler, who'd handled the original purchase, had to inform them they were attempting to sell stolen property. The humiliation of being escorted out of the jewelry store by security became the final public spectacle in what had already been a very public breakdown. Amber's parents found themselves facing not only the wedding cancellation costs but also unexpected tax implications from their daughter's failed investment strategies. Their accountant informed them that their $45,000 contribution to the house purchase couldn't be written off as a loss since it had been structured as a business investment rather than a gift. Meanwhile, they still owed taxes on the income they'd used to make the contribution in the first place. The financial stress began tearing apart Amber's family as they blamed each other for encouraging what they now realized had been a catastrophically bad plan. Her father's business relationships suffered as word spread about the engagement party disaster, and her mother was quietly dropped from several social organizations where the story had become the primary topic of conversation. 6 months after the engagement party disaster, I ran into Amber at a coffee shop downtown. The transformation was shocking. Gone was the confident, entitled woman who'd thought she could manipulate me into funding her lifestyle. In her place stood someone who looked genuinely broken, working behind the counter at what I later learned was her father's struggling business, making minimum wage because her social media infamy had made her unemployable anywhere else in Denver's marketing scene. Her dating life had become a local joke. Screenshots of her new dating profile circulated through Denver's professional singles community like a cautionary tale. She was still demanding financial security while offering prenup protection, apparently having learned nothing from our experience. Must be financially stable and understand that modern women protect their assets, her profile read, next to photos that looked increasingly desperate. The comments from potential matches were brutal but predictable. Is this the prenup lady from TikTok? And hard pass on the financial manipulation specialist. Meanwhile, my life had taken a completely different trajectory. The entire experience had inspired me to create a financial education app for couples called Partnership Protection. The app helped couples navigate financial decisions together, recognize manipulation tactics, and structure their finances in ways that promoted trust rather than exploitation. The irony wasn't lost on me that Amber's attempt to manipulate me had led to creating something that would help thousands of other couples avoid similar situations. The app became hugely successful, generating over $500,000 in revenue within the first year and establishing partnerships with relationship counselors and financial advisors across the country. My net worth had indeed crossed the $3 million mark that Amber's family had been so eager to access, but now it was completely protected by proper legal structures and, more importantly, shared with someone who actually deserved it. I'd started dating Sarah, a fellow software developer who'd actually contributed to my app's development. She was brilliant, financially independent, and had laughed until she cried when I showed her the engagement party video. "I can't believe she thought that would work," Sarah had said. "Did she seriously not realize you'd protect yourself after an announcement like that?" Sarah and I had moved in together after 6 months, splitting expenses equally and building something genuine together. She'd helped optimize the app's algorithm, refused to let me pay for more than my fair share of anything, and actually seemed to enjoy our quiet evenings working on projects together. The contrast with Amber couldn't have been more stark. Emma had kept the donated property proceeds working for the nonprofit, which had grown into something amazing. The Amber Walsh Financial Education Fund had now helped over 500 women recognize and avoid financial manipulation in relationships. They'd expanded to offer workshops on prenups, asset protection, and healthy financial communication between partners. The program had become so successful that other cities were requesting similar initiatives. The most satisfying part was watching Amber's reaction when she realized her name would be permanently associated with helping other women avoid the exact mistakes she'd made. The nonprofit sent her quarterly updates on their progress, complete with testimonials from women who'd been helped by the program. Each update was a reminder that her failed manipulation attempt was now preventing others from becoming victims of similar schemes. Amber had tried to contact me several times over the months, alternating between apologies and threats. Her messages revealed someone who still didn't understand that her problems weren't caused by my response to her behavior, but by the behavior itself. "You could have just explained why you were upset instead of destroying my life," one message read, showing she still viewed herself as the victim of my unreasonable reaction rather than the architect of her own downfall. The final message came on what would have been our wedding day. "I hope you're happy with how this all turned out," she wrote. You got your revenge, but you lost someone who really loved you. I showed the message to Sarah, who shook her head in amazement. She still doesn't get it, Sarah said. She thinks love is letting someone manipulate you financially. I deleted the message without responding. Amber had gotten exactly what she'd asked for at that engagement party, complete financial separation from me. The fact that it hadn't worked out the way she'd planned was entirely her own fault. Looking back, I realized that engagement party had been the best thing that ever happened to me. Amber's attempted manipulation had revealed her true character and saved me from years of being treated like a human ATM. More importantly, it had led me to build something meaningful that was helping other people, and to find someone who valued partnership over profit.